Grace and peace. Welcome to Judah's Roy Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative YouTube channel. I'm your host, Apostle Cheryl. Now, before we get started, you know what I'm about to say. I'm going to give you a few seconds to check down here below the video, right down there. Make sure you subscribe if you've not done so already, and then click the bell for notifications so that you receive a notice every time we upload a new video on Sunday evenings at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Additionally, we've begun doing animation, so make sure you check that out here on our channel as well, all right? Feel free to share any of our videos on all of your social media platforms. That's one real way, one tangible way that you can partner with us in our quest to raise awareness and to end domestic violence, okay? Thank you for taking a few minutes to attend to that. Now, today we're going to be talking about the effects of domestic violence on children. The effects of domestic violence on children. Some of the things that can happen with kids that are exposed to domestic violence, no matter what their age is that it can really seriously damage their self-esteem and their sense of positive self-regard. It can undermine them being able to have a healthy self-esteem later in life. And they may not participate in school activities. Um, they may not get good grades. They may have fewer friends. They may get into trouble more often, and they may have a lot of somatic complaints. And when we talk about somatic complaints, we're talking about physical complaints, not feeling well, tummy ache, headache, generalized just not feeling well, being withdrawn or being depressed. According to the Office on Women's Health, and you can check them out at womenshealth.gov, many children exposed to violence in the home are also victims of physical abuse themselves. And so it's damaging for them to witness it, as well as it's damaging, of course, if they are directly being aggressed against or being psychologically or emotionally abused, okay? They are at serious risk for long-term physical and mental health problems. And children who witness violence may also be at increased risk to become victims or perpetrators themselves in future relationships. Okay, so it's important to remember that. Now, if you are a parent or a caregiver and you're experiencing abuse, it can be difficult to know how you can help your child or how you can help your children in these situations. Children in homes where one parent is abused may feel anxious or fearful. They may be hypervigilant, which means that they are extra sensitive and hyper aware of everything that's going on in their environment. So they may present as always being on guard or on edge because they are literally anticipating when the next violent event is going to occur. All right. And because domestic violence tends to be cyclical in nature, um, they're exposed to it so they know what that continuum looks like. They know how it typically starts, and they know when there's an uptick, and they have a pretty good idea of what to expect in terms of the degree of violence that takes place in the home. And so this can cause them to act differently and to react differently based on their age. So let's talk about children that are in preschool. Preschool age children may regress emotionally and behaviorally, okay? And by that I mean that they may begin to engage in behaviors that they had previously outgrown or had moved past. Or they may cry more. They may revert to whining, as children do often when they can't find words to express what's troubling them or what's concerning them or what's causing them distress. They may revert to bedwetting, thumb sucking. They may have insomnia, difficulty falling asleep, or difficulty maintaining a healthy amount of sleep once they do get to sleep, which means that they're waking up throughout the night. They may begin to stutter. um, engage in hiding behaviors, seeming really afraid and timid much of the time. And they may demonstrate severe separation anxiety, which means they just totally lose it when separated from the caregiver or the parent. And part of that is being concerned about what's going to happen when they're not there, being concerned about if the partner that's being abused, if the parent that's being abused will be there when they come back, will they be okay, what's going to happen to them. And listen, I can tell you from personal experience when I was very, very young, um, my mother used to have to make me go outside and play with other kids because I figured out that things got really strange when we were sent outside to play and that she may very well be getting hurt. There was no telling what would be done to her when we weren't in the house. And so I did everything in my power to not leave the house. And so that's one of the ways that I know that it manifested in my own life, that I wanted to spend very little time outside and away from her because I wanted to try to protect her as best that I could. And this is when I was very, very young. I wasn't even 10 years old yet. Now, school age children may respond a little differently. They may feel guilty, they may blame themselves. And sometimes this is because things of like, well, did I clean my room? If I cleaned my room better, then maybe dad wouldn't have been mad, and maybe he wouldn't have taken it out on mom. Or, if I had done the dishes or if I had gotten better grades. So they tend to assume responsibility for the toxic environment that's in the home, and they may feel guilty and blame themselves. They may not participate in school activities um, due to poor self esteem or because they don't want to be away from home, um, hoping that they can somehow curb the violence that's taking place at home if they're there. Um, they may get failing grades. I know that one of the indicators that my mother had that she needed to do something is that I'd always been an A student. Um, and my grades started slipping. And I was in elementary school. My grades just started slipping. Looking back, I can tell you that they began to slip because of increased anxiety, concerned about her welfare, being very clear in my own young mind about what my father was capable of when he was in his mood, um, and because I wasn't sleeping. And so I would stay awake at night because I was afraid to go to sleep because I didn't know what would happen when I went to sleep. I didn't know what he might do to her when I went to sleep. And so I would stay awake. And so now, if I am in elementary school and I'm not sleeping through the night, or I'm power napping and cat napping through the night, quite naturally, I'm exhausted when it's time to be in class. And I'm away from my mother at that point, and I'm concerned about her safety at that point. So I'm distracted. And the last thing on my mind when we hit that phase was maintaining my A average. Okay, so it's very impactful, and a child that grows up in it tries to morph and adapt to the circumstances as best they can, but it's very, very, very damaging, and it's very detrimental. Okay. And also, a child that is school age may have a lot of somatic complaints, headaches, stomach aches, um, generalized aches and pains that they can't really pinpoint or describe. They may struggle with becoming really depressed and sad and withdrawn as well. Now, teens who witness abuse may act out in negative ways. It's almost like they're saying, I need for someone to pay attention and figure out, I need a grown up to figure out that something's really wrong at my house because I'm not allowed to tell you. Okay. So they may act out in negative ways, fighting with family members, skipping school, engaging in risk taking behaviors, smoking, vaping, drinking, using drugs, popping pills. If they are of an age where they are allowed to drive, driving recklessly or driving and they're not old enough to be driving at all, um, they may get into like shoplifting. There's all kinds of mischief and shenanigans that kids can get into um, when home is not a safe place, okay? Um, they may become troublemakers or bullies, okay? Um, they may have a hard time keeping friends. They may start fights with other kids. They may get into legal trouble, okay? Now, usually boys are more demonstrative, but I can tell you as a mental health professional that has worked extensively with both boys with mental health issues and who have been adjudicated delinquent and maybe who had, um, committed a myriad of crimes and gotten into all kinds of mischief, that it's not impossible for a girl to take that same path. And when you have a girl who is engaging in that behavior, that demonstrative behavior, it is oftentimes over the top. Oftentimes it's over the top, okay? And so we can say most times boys are demonstrative, but I can tell you from personal experience that there are girls that I have treated that have engaged in some of the behaviors that I've just described for you. The bullying, the troublemaking, getting into legal issues. They may become promiscuous, the boys or the girls, sexually promiscuous. Risk-taking behaviors, unprotected sex, all kinds of things. And they're acting out of their frustration, they're acting out of guilt, they're acting out of fear, and anger, and in some cases, rage because they feel powerless to protect the parent that's being abused. Now, in some instances, you may have kids who rally around the victim and they are supportive and encouraging and protective. But the flip side of that same coin is also very possible, where the victim, because they're a victim, has elicited disrespect and disregard um, by their children. And so the children can also then become abusive towards the victim. So you have the position where they can become protective of the victim, and maybe defiant towards the abuser. Or you can have a situation where the children align themselves with the entity in the home that seems to be the most powerful, which is often the abuser. They align with the abuser in undermining the mother or the victim. Okay. Girls are more likely to demonstrate that they are withdrawn and to experience depression. Um, and so let's talk about the long term effects on children. More than 15 million children in the US live in homes in which domestic violence has occurred at least one time. At least one time. More than 15 million children. These kids are at greater risk of repeating the cycle as adults, either as victims or perpetrators, as we said. Um, and let me just say that in the event that you're a victim and the abuser has shared with you that they've had a history of domestic violence, that does not make it okay for them to perpetrate it upon you. That is not an excuse to stay. That's not a valid reason to continue to endure it. Um, it's not. They need help, and probably won't receive it from you because they've already established that they can mistreat you. Um, and they expect that they have a right to do that. And so, yes, they do need help. Yes, they need to want help more than anything. They need to want help more than they want to be with you. You can't be the reason that they want help. They need to want help because they understand that they are out of control. If that culminates in a relationship with you or not, they need to be a better human. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that. A boy who sees his mother being abused is 10 times more likely to abuse his female partners as an adult. I'm going to say that again. A boy who has seen his mother be abused is 10 times more likely to abuse his female partner as an adult. A girl who grows up in a home where her father abuses her mother is more than 6 times as likely to be the victim of sexual abuse as a girl who grows up in a home that is not abusive. Children who witness abuse or are victims of abuse are at higher risk for health problems like depression, anxiety, other mental health issues, obesity, and heart disease. Can children recover if they've witnessed it or if they are experiencing domestic violence or abuse? Each child is different. Some kids are more resilient, and some kids are more sensitive. Successful recovery, though, is possible. Successful recovery is possible. Um, I can attest to that myself. And what it requires is a good, reliable support system and healthy relationships with at least one adult who is not exploiting them and not manipulating them and not trying to further control and abuse them. Okay. So a trusted adult. And if they can have healthy friendships, be around other kids that are really, really good. And as their self esteem and their sense of self worth is restored because of their interactions with these trusted adults and positive other young people, they can begin to heal. Now, they're not going to forget. I certainly haven't forgotten all that foolery that I experienced. I've not forgotten it. I can remember it just like it was yesterday. Okay. And so you don't forget it. You don't forget it. But you can develop healthy coping skills and you can really get to know yourself, right? So that you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and you know where your blind spots are, and all of that. So it's very possible for them to recover. The sooner that they get help, the sooner that they get genuine, authentic, consistent support, the better their chances are to be mentally and physically healthy adults. So, can children recover? Yes, they can. Now, it's impossible to witness, to experience domestic violence, to be exposed to it if you're the immediate target or not, and to walk away from that unscathed. It changes you. And trauma rewires the brain. And when we're talking about children and young people, their brain's not even finished being developed. And so the rewiring is occurring, and their brain's not even fully formed. And so it does have an impact. But all hope is not lost. All hope is not lost. It is very possible to go on and live a happy, productive life in which you are not tormenting other human beings. It's absolutely possible. The sooner they get the help and the genuine care and concern from trusted adults and good friends and a reliable support system, the better their chances are for living a healthy, productive, and happy life. This is Apostle Cheryl with Judas Roy Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. I hope that this look at how domestic violence impacts children has been helpful to you. Remember that all kids are not the same. Some are more resilient and some are more sensitive, but all of them, given the right supports, can move on and have a healthy, productive life. You be safe out there. Blessings to you.